Did you know that Italian art changed the world? And no, I'm not talking about pizza or pasta. I mean art. Specifically, 4 pieces of art that were created in Italy that are so important they have their own dedicated museum. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to look at 4 Italian works of art that changed the world. Starting off our list today at number 1 is Michelangelo's David. He was 16 when he began sculpting it and finished it by age 26. But this is not just any marble statue. This is an extraordinary work of art. It stands 17 feet tall and weighs over 60 tons. The work has been hailed as the greatest example of Renaissance sculpture. This famous biblical hero looks like he could come alive at any moment. And there are so many details in the work. If you look closely, you can see the artist put veins in David's hands and feet. You can even see the muscles in his butt. Yes, people used to dress differently back in the day. No fig leaf for David. In fact, Michelangelo was actually criticized for putting too much emphasis on the genitals of male figures. So, yeah, that must have been quite shocking back then. The story of David goes back to the Old Testament, specifically the book of Samuel. When David was just a young shepherd, he was called to the city of Jerusalem. Why? To fight a giant warrior named Goliath. Goliath challenged the Israelites every day for 40 days, but nobody would fight him. Eventually, David volunteered to fight. At first, King Saul thought this was a bad idea. David was just a young boy, and Goliath was a professional fighter. But David insisted. He knew that God was on his side. David fought Goliath and won. It's safe to say that David's slingshot skills were superior to Goliath's sword skills. The story of David and Goliath teaches us that you don't have to be the biggest or strongest person in the room. Sometimes it's your skill and determination that really matters. We all have unique talents. Michelangelo may not have been the most famous artist during his time, but his incredible talent allowed him to become very famous. That's why. In 1501, the Opera del Duomo in Florence gave him a huge block of marble to sculpt. It was almost a test to see if he was up for the job. Well, he passed with flying colors. So where can you see David today? Well, right now he's in Florence. He's been there since 1504, which is 520 years ago. People didn't realize what they had back then. They got used to seeing David's rear end every day. But in 1846, the government made it illegal to move him. Some people were trying to sell him to other countries. So that's how David stayed in Florence. Now let's go to Rome to look at one of my favorite works of art, the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. It took Michelangelo 4 years to complete. He started painting in 1508 and finished in 1512. Here's a fun fact for you. Back then, people wouldn't visit the chapel to admire the ceiling. No, they would go there to hear Mass. But eventually, word got out that the chapel had the best art ever, so people would go out of their way just to see the paintings. Eventually, the Pope realized that he needed to close off the chapel to the public because it was getting overcrowded. Now over 5 million people visit the chapel every year. It's closed to tourists on Mondays. Yeah, it has its own personal staff just to keep it open every day. Michelangelo painted the entire ceiling himself. There are no other artists' names up there. He painted the stories from the book of Genesis, the first 9 chapters of the Old Testament. You know, the story of creation, the forbidden fruit, Adam and Eve, Noah and the flood. The list goes on. In the center of the ceiling is the prophet Ezekiel. Who is he? Well, he's considered the greatest prophet in the Jewish faith. Look around him, and you will see angels playing instruments. They're like a heavenly orchestra up there. But what about those muscular guys holding up the world? What's up with that? Well, they're called Sibyls. Sibyls were women who were believed to be able to predict the future. The artist wanted to show the continuity between the Old Testament and the New Testament. Jesus is the New Covenant, but the old prophets still hold true. The first Sibyl is holding the book of Isaiah. The second Sibyl is holding the book of Jeremiah. The third Sibyl is holding the book of Ezekiel. And the fourth Sibyl is holding the book of Daniel. The reason these books were chosen is because they predicted the coming of Christ. And as you look around the ceiling, you'll notice something else. There are many, many eyes watching you. They're called oculi, or eyes. These eyes represent God watching over humanity. At number 3, we have Raphael's The School of Athens. It was completed in 1511. It's a fresco, meaning that it was painted onto the walls. It's 20 feet wide and 30 feet long. The artwork was commissioned by the popes who wanted to decorate their newly built palace. Raphael painted some of the most important philosophers and scientists from Greece. There's Aristotle pointing to a globe. Next to him is Ptolemy, the guy who came up with the geocentric theory. You've heard of the heliocentric theory, right? That's the idea that the Earth revolves around the sun. Well, Ptolemy said the exact opposite. He thought the sun revolved around the Earth. He also created a device called the astrolabe. It's used to tell the time and location of stars. Pythagoras is in the middle with his finger pointed up in the sky. He's considered the father of mathematics. Euclid is next to him. He's known for his work on geometry. Plato is on the far left. He's the one holding the Academy scroll. The Academy was the first institution of higher learning. The guy in the middle with his finger raised is Socrates. He was the mentor of Plato. Unfortunately, Socrates died before Plato was born, so Plato wrote down everything Socrates taught. Raphael tried to include Leonardo da Vinci in the artwork, but he didn't finish the piece. You'll see a man with his finger resting on a book. That's supposed to be Leonardo. I guess they weren't friends. Still, though, this is one of the best artworks in the world. I hope you get the chance to see it in person. And finally, at number 4, we have The Last Supper. It was painted between 1495 and 1498. The painting is 15 feet wide and 29 feet long. It's so large because it was painted on the wall of a refectory, basically a dining hall for monks. The painting shows Jesus having dinner with his disciples. The drama is about to unfold. Jesus has just told them that one of them will betray him. Everybody is reacting. John is leaning against Jesus. Peter is pulling out his sword. Judas Iscariot is on the far left. He's the one who betrayed Jesus. There's so much emotion packed into this work of art. You can feel the tension through the screen. There are 2 interesting facts about this painting. First, the paint has never been retouched. Sure, there's some damage here and there, but nothing has been added. Second, you may have heard that there's a secret message hidden in the artwork. Really? What's the secret message? Well, if you look at the letters on the pillar, they spell out the word Christo. Let's take a closer look. C-R-I-S-T-O. What does that mean? Well, Cristo is the Spanish word for Christ. It's also the Italian word for Christ. But wait, I thought this painting was in France. You're thinking of another famous painting, Mona Lisa. No, The Last Supper is in Milan, Italy. I told you it was a secret message. Over 8 million people visit the painting every year. I'm sure the monks back in the day never expected that. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Did you learn anything new? Are you planning to travel to Italy to see these amazing works of art? Let me know in the comments below. I want to thank you for joining me. Watch again. See you next time.